What's good, all my mathematicians out there? It's back, your girl PS, Professor Sampson, with another banger, right? So, what are we going to do today? Today, we're going to be doing some more quadratic equations, and we're going to be using the quadratic formula, the quadratic. Maybe I should do a TikTok. No? Okay. All right. Anyway, we're going to get into this video. But if you would like to see more videos, do not forget to subscribe, subscribe so you can know whenever I'm going to drop these math bangers. So click the pink subscribe button over there or somewhere. You don't know, I don't know where it is. So just click it, please, and support my channel. Anyway, enough begging for subscribers. Ain't nobody got time for that. You came here to get into some math. So let's get ready to do that. And as usual, I'm going to share my screen. But remember, like and make comments. Let me know what you feel, what you like, and what you're doing. How's this math stuff working for you? All right. So anyway, let's get ready. Woo, looking at my YouTube page too much. Okay. So let's get right into it. Let's talk about this quadratic formula. All right. So what is the quadratic formula? Let's see if I can pop it up here in the corner. This is probably all stuff that you usually edit out, but I don't know how to do none of that stuff. So we're going to work through it and work it out. But while I'm saying it, the quadratic formula is what? X equals what? Anybody know it? X equals opposite b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Okay, right? Doing too much? All right, I'm doing too much. Okay. So just letting you know. But they do have it online on YouTube. If you go on YouTube and you search quadratic formula, you'll hear them singing it, and pop goes the weasel. You'll hear them singing it in a whole lot of places. So don't tell me you can't memorize it. X equals minus b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Okay, all right. So yeah, I don't know why that one looks like that. So we just gonna get out and I'm gonna write it down myself because that's not what I'm looking for. All right. So we just gonna do something else with that. Okay. So here it is here. X equals quadratic formula. Sorry. Formula. So X equals minus b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Okay, that's important. So I'm not just stressing that, but that's important for several reasons. The students always get this wrong because it's all over 2a, and what they do is they think that like the b is over the 2a and not the rest of it. So let's jump into that. So something else we want to get into is eventually is the discriminant, but I just want to do an example. Now, if you saw my last video, which I'll link down in the description bar below, or it'll be somewhere on my channel. All right, we learned how to do a quadratic equation using using completing the square. So completing the square, our a had to be 1, or we had to work it out to be 1. The good thing about the quadratic formula is it doesn't have to be 1. So let's say if we have, for example, x squared plus 3x plus 5 equals 0. Now I'm going to pause and go over to the side and talk about something called the discriminant. Because this is all a part of it. The discriminant is the inside of the radical. So the discriminant is b squared minus 4ac without the radical. And the discriminant is important because it tells you how many and what types of solutions you're going to get. It's going to tell you the nature of the solutions that you're going to get. What do I mean by nature? Well, we know that usually we're going to get 2 answers, right, in a quadratic. So what kind of answers are we going to get? Well, when your discriminant, b squared minus 4ac, is greater than 0, then we know we're going to get 2 real solutions. All right. If b squared minus 4ac is equal to 0, we're going to get one real solution. And actually, that's a repeated solution. All right. And lastly, if b squared minus 4ac is less than 0, we're going to get two non-real solutions. Well, why is that? Think about it. B squared minus 4ac is what? It's under a radical. If it's under the radical, then we know that if we try to take a square root of a negative number, we're going to get a what? Imaginary number or a non-real number. Right? So that's how that works. So my suggestion to you when you're working the quadratic formula is to do the discriminant first. That helps you with your numeric calculations, and it keeps your calculations down a little. Okay, it keeps you from making those errors. So if you cannot use a calculator, then this is a good way to go about it. And even if you can use a calculator, you want to go about it. So what's our steps? Let's jump right into this part. What are our steps? The first steps is to identify A, B, and C. And in our example, A is equal to 1. Remember, A, B, and C are numbers. Please don't put X's next to them. Your instructor will mark you wrong. B is equal to 3, and C is equal to 5. Right? And then we just plug them in. But what I said, what you want to do first is number 2, is just go ahead and do that discriminant. So the discriminant will tell you right away what kind of answers you're going to have. So when they ask you, what type of solutions you're going to ask, what's the nature of your solutions. Different books ask it different ways, but that's what they're asking you about. All right. So we're going to do b squared minus 4ac. Let's see what we got. So we got 3 squared minus 4ac. Right. Now I could do that in my head, but let's just pop up our calculator here. Get some calculator work started. 3 squared minus, right? So I put it in parentheses usually because when it's negative, you want to make sure it's in parentheses. So I'm going to keep on going with the same habit. So you got 3 squared minus 4a, and then I think c was 5. Okay? And you get negative 11, lo and behold, okay? So we get negative 11. So this is going to be, our discriminant is equal to negative 11. So you might have a question on an exam, what kind of solutions, what types of solutions, what's the nature of your solutions, any of those questions. So any of those questions, the answer is we're going to get 2, right, non-real solutions. All right, just in case you were asked. So now let's do the quadratic formula. So we got minus 3 plus or minus the square root. Now this is the cool part. You can just pop in negative 11 all over 2 times a. Right? Clean it up a little bit. Negative 3 plus or minus. Right? Now remember, this negative comes out as I, and as I told you in my other videos, I put the I in front, so your instructor won't make a mistake and think it's under all over 2. Now the plus or minus indicates that there are 2 answers, but just like when I showed you how to do completing the square, I'm going to write this in 2 answers. My first answer is going to be x is equal to negative 3 plus I radical 11 all over 2. And x is equal to negative 3 minus I radical 11 all over 2. Now take a look at this. When we did complete in the square, right? When we did complete in the square, we had it broken up, all right? We didn't necessarily have it this way. Another way to write it is x equals negative 3 over 2 plus or minus, or if I just do the plus side, but plus or minus the square root of 11 over 2. All right, then I could break that up into, oops, forgot my I. Okay. So that's another way that your instructor may ask you to write it. A plus BI with the real number and the imaginary number if that's the case. Okay, so this is pretty much simple. Let's do a couple more examples, make it a little quicker. All right, so I'm going to move that out of the way. I can still bring, all right, now I'll leave the discriminant information up there. We'll just figure it out as we go along. So here's your second example. You know, I like to do 4 examples so you can get a feel for any type of example that's thrown at you. Again, your question may not ask you what types of answers you're going to get, okay? So that one was a little different. Let's do this one. 3x squared plus 2x minus 2. Let's see. And remember, they need to be set up in our old, if you recall, right? ax squared plus bx plus c. All right, so it has to be set equal to 0. So let's get started. A is equal to 3. Right? B is equal to 2. And C is equal to negative 2. All right, so you can just see me do it in action. The first thing I'm going to do is my discriminant, b squared minus 4ac. That's going to give me 2 squared minus 4a is 3, c is negative 2. See if I can remember that. I'm going to pop that in my calculator. Of course, I can do it in my head, but head math is not smart math, all right? Especially if you have a calculator. Head math is not smart math. And as I say, I continue to put this in parentheses. And what was the rest of that problem? Let me double check. That's going to be 4, 3, negative 2. You put that in your calculator. Times negative 2. All right, here we got 28. Good to go. So our discriminant is equal to 28. What does that mean? If you're asked what it means, if you're given something greater than 0, that means you're going to have 2 real numbers. All right. So let's keep going because we weren't asked that. So x equals minus b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac, right? All over 2a. So x equals minus b plus or minus the square root, again, making it easier for us, 28, all over 2 times a, which is 3. Okay, I'm going to clean it up. Negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 28 over 6. Okay, so now we might have an issue here. Let's check out 28. Can 28 be broken down? Remember, we can't leave our radicals unless they're simplified. So 28 is what? If you don't know, it's never difficult to worry about knowing. You can check my other videos out. But if you want to find the factors of something, you go 28 divided by x. Again, if you don't know how to find the factors, just look at my video. So I got 2 and 14, 7 and 4. All right, if I didn't know, but I already knew that. So I'm going to use 7 and 4. So 28 breaks down to 7 times 4. And I like to break mine all the way down. Remember, this is all under the radical. So that gives you 2 radical 7. If you don't know how to do the radicals, check the other video. Negative 2 plus or minus 2 radical 7 all over 6. Now you're not done, okay? You're not done. The easiest way, the best way that I find to do it, don't worry about the signs, is to factor out. So I'm going to factor out a 2 here. If I factor out a 2, I'm left with what? Negative 1. Leave your plus or minus. Don't worry about it. Radical 7. All over 6. Why did I do that? Remember, if I multiply this back out, I'm going to get this original one. But then that allows me to do what? To reduce, right? 2 goes into 2 once. 2 goes into 6 3 times. So now I have negative 1 plus or minus the square root of 7 over 3. And if I want to write my two answers, depending on how you want to write it, you can write x equals negative 1 plus radical 7 over 3. Right? Or, you know, this can be written as, depending on your instructor, negative 1 over 3 plus radical 7 over 3. Right? And then you have your other half, x equals negative 1 minus radical 7 over 3. Okay. So either way is fine. You might be able to get away with the plus or minus for some of your instructors. Other instructors just want it broken up into 2 pieces, however you want it to be done, right? So make sure you're checking out those numbers that you might have to factor out, right? Let's try one more. I don't know how in-depth you might get with yours or your instructor may get with theirs, but you can start off with something and have to multiply it out and do a long set of stuff, or you may start off with a fraction. So students don't like fractions, so let's try number 3, which is all fractions. How about this one? 2/3 x squared, I like these, minus 1/3 x plus 1/2 equals 0. Okay, what are we going to do with these fractions? Okay, well, you could work this way. You could say a equals 2/3, b equals negative 1/3, and c equals 1/2. But then you have to put it in your x equals negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And then you will have a whole bunch of fractions. But what we've learned about fractions is that we don't like them and we don't want to use them. So what we might do is find the LCM. So the LCM between these is 6, all right? And I have a video on it, but just in case you didn't know what the LCM was or to find the LCM on, you can check my video out, Math Num 8, and then we would put in the 2 numbers, right? You put in 3 with the comma, 2, because those are the denominators, and then you could get the LCM of 6, all right? So what are we going to do with that 6? We're going to multiply it through by everything. So we're going to multiply everything by 6, and I'm going to show you this as a refresher. Usually I don't. So you're going to multiply this by 6, this by 6, this by 6, and this by 6. Now you could pop it in your calculator, but I am not. I'm just going to cancel because the whole purpose is to get rid of your denominator. So 3 here, leaves that with a 2. 3 here, leaves that with a 2. And 2 here, leaves that with a 3. So when we finish, we have 2 times 2, we have 4x squared minus 2x, right, plus 3 equals 0. All right, so now we have our setup. A equals 4, B equals negative 2, and C equals 3. I'm going to find my discriminant, b squared minus 4ac. See what kind of answers I'm looking at. B squared minus 4AC. Now remember about those, remember on the last problems I told you I always put it in parentheses. Well, let's check this out if I did not put the number in parentheses. Okay, if you were just sitting there and you said, oh, -2, and make sure it's not a minus, or you -2 squared minus 4, and what was A and C? 4, 3. Now, if I put this in, look what I get. This is not the correct answer. Okay, now I'm going to put it in properly. Four, 3. Look at this. Two totally different answers. So your answer would have just been wrong, right? Your answer would have been wrong because you put it in your calculator wrong. That's why, as you can see, you just create good habits. You continue with good habits. So you see, I always put it in a parenthesis, whether it's negative or positive, so that I don't forget to do it normally. If you want to know why that happens, we can do that. Just comment down below and ask me why it happens, and I'll respond to you. Okay, or I'll make a video on it. Either way. But anyway, this answer is -44. Okay, so let's get back. So that's going to be -44. Okay. X equals minus B, which is -2. It is not 2. Please don't do this. That's not what it is. B is -2. Again, parentheses are so important. X equals minus B. All right. Plus or minus the square root of -44 all over 2 times 4. Now negative is 2, plus or minus the square root of -44 all over 8. The next thing we need to do is break down -44, or rather 44. 44 is going to be 11 times 4. 11 is prime, 2 and 2. So this becomes 2 radical 11. All right, so let's get that. So we have 2 plus or minus I, 2I radical 11, okay? Because remember, we had that negative there that we had to pull out. That's why you need to take your time and be careful. Okay, you cannot do these in the calculator because the calculator is going to give you back a decimal. All right, all over 8. So what's our final answer going to be here? Well, we see that we can factor out. So we're going to factor out a 2. So we get 2. We get 1 with the 2 outside. 1 plus or minus I radical 11 all over 8. Right? 2 and 2 cancel that out, leaving you with 4. So your final answer is X equals 1 plus or minus I radical 11 over 4. You can stop these and re-practice them. Again, some of your instructors are going to want you to break it down into the 2 answers. And some computer programs, some software programs are going to also want you to break it down into the 2 answers. So make sure you ask your instructor or you figure out what software program you're working with so you can put in the right answer. Because some software programs don't have a plus or minus button. Okay. So that was 3 examples of one of your quadratic equations, okay? There really are not your quadratic equations using the quadratic formula. They don't get any harder than that, so you should be good in reference to working these problems out. We can do one more, a longer one. I don't know what kind of instructor you have. Maybe you'll be given something longer or something that's not, let's say, equal to 0. What do you do with that? Well, it's the same process. So let's say if you had this last example here, I usually like to do 4 examples. And you know all my examples are different, so always stay to the end of the video. All right, you might miss one. Example 4. So for example, you might have this type of question. Let's say we have, I think I like this one, and x cubed. Let's try that one. Now you know quadratics have to be squared, but this is the problem that we're given. X cubed minus 8x squared is equal to 3x squared plus 3x. And as you know, first thing is that it has to be set equal to 0. So you have to subtract everything and move it to one side. So I'm going to subtract 3x squared. That's going to leave me with x cubed minus 11x squared is equal to 3x. And then I have to subtract 3x. And of course, you don't subtract them from each other. Now I'm left with x cubed minus 11x squared minus 3x is equal to 0. Now, some students would stop right here and say, oh, I can't solve this problem. But I want you to look up here. How many answers are you going to get, first of all? Just make sure you check this box right here, right, before we finish the question. Again, how many answers should you get? Right? You should get 3 answers. All right, we'll talk about that in a minute. But the first thing is, remember, when you look at this, you can factor out an x. You have to go back. You have to remember your rules. Factor out an x, leaving you with x squared minus 11x minus 3 equals 0. Now, this is an answer you should know from doing other math. You got to set that equal to 0. So you set x equal to 0. And then you set x squared minus 11x minus 3 equal to 0. Okay, so here's one answer because that says x equals. So that's one answer. Then we do the quadratic formula for this one since we use the quadratic equation, quadratic formula. A equals 1, B equals negative 11, and C equals negative 3. And we go through our problem like we would normally go through it. So you can pause the video here and see if you're able to get the answer. I'm not going to do that speed up thing. I'm just going to go through and let you watch me work the problem with some quiet. All right. I need background music. So once I learn how to put background music in, you know I'm going to be able to get it. So I guess I'll sing the Jeopardy song. Dun-na. Is that copyrighted? Oh no, is that copyrighted? I don't know. So I guess I have to sing something else. I think anything I sing would be copyrighted, right? 4, 1, negative 3. All right. Let's see. Well, if anything is copyright, that's 133. All right. Need my paper back. So if anything I sing is copyrighted, then I'm gonna have to just make up my own song, and you really gonna want to get out of this video at this point. X equals negative b, right? Negative 11. Make sure you stop the video because I'm about to get it. I don't know what to sing. Professor Sampson, Professor Sampson, Professor Sampson. Well, that's not copyrighted, so I'm gonna sing that as I go through and work out the problem. Okay, now we want to check 133. Had to stop my song for a minute. Professor Sampson, Professor Sampson, Professor Sampson, Professor Sampson. What? Get it. Need to do a tick-tock, a tick-tock, a tick-tock. Now we looking at 7 and 19, right? 7 and 19 is the only thing for 133, and 7 and 19 are both what? Both of them are prime numbers, so we don't have to worry about it. Basically, what we're saying there is that it cannot be broken down. Okay, so 133 cannot be broken down, but you have to check. So that's it, and there's nothing to factor out. So our answers are x equals 11 plus square root of 133 over 2. A lot of students would say, this answer don't look right. All right. I know you're out there and you're mathematicians in the making, but you're not yet qualified to determine what answer looks right. So just know that if you've done your process, it is right. All right. And look, 0. So those are your 3 answers. Some instructors have you write it out like this. I'm pretty fond of having you write it out like this just to show you. So this video was kind of long, but you had 4 examples, 4 different examples on how to do the quadratic formula. Okay, you had imaginary numbers, you had real numbers, you had all types of numbers so that you were able to go through and practice each one of them. And you also learned about discriminants and what discriminants are. So I think this video did everything it was supposed to do. We used the quadratic formula to solve our quadratic equations, and we also talked about the discriminant. Yay! So keep it up. Please click subscribe if you like my video, even my singing, Professor Sampson, Professor Sampson. Anyway, this is Professor Sampson from PS, that's me. P.S. I love math, and as you know, I love math. And catch me later with the next banger. Bye.